I'd like to introduce him. Come on up, and he's going to talk to us about Seth Blood. He was the first physician in Brunswick, Ohio. So that was he came shortly after the first settlers. So he's going to get into that right now. So take it away, Bob.
Well, thank you. If you can't hear me, just tell me. And over more.
We're not in
Get on the ground. We did a little thing with the bus a couple weeks ago with Seth, and we were supposed to talk about 5-10 minutes and that there. It was pretty good. But then after that, I really got into this man, what he did and how he did it. So I went up to Medina Library, and there was a librarian there, a historian library. And then some lady from Wayne County was there looking it up, and she helped me go through some things, finding even more. So it was really interesting to see about this guy. So the first thing, Seth Blood he lived in Brunswick, 640 feet from the center of town. He was born in Charlton. He was born in Charlton, Massachusetts, a town that his grandfather founded. His grandfather served in the French and Indian Wars, and he was a captain. Pardon? Well, I can't go this way, I can't go that way.
Can you go that way a little bit?
If you want to see that. I can go whatever way you want. Can you guys see?
Well, I can see it now. Okay.
So, his father, next slide please. His father was also Nathaniel Blood, but Jr., and he served in the Revolutionary War. And Seth was born 1783. So his father must have came home and visited his mother because he was born when the war was still going on. He wasn't at war all the time. He was a lieutenant colonel, and he was one of the first. He fought in the Lexington battle. He started out as a private and wound up. He was a colonel when he was finished. So he really did some fighting. Well, that sets the stage for Seth. Seth was born in 1783. Like I said, the war was still going on. It was coming to an end, more or less. And can you go to the next slide, please? And this is Seth's birth certificate from Massachusetts. He was brought up being military. His grandfather and his father being in the French and Indian War, and that it inspired him. In one of the books I read, it says that he wanted to be a soldier as a young man, a young boy. So that's what sets the stage for him. The guy was meant to be military. This is his birth. I'm not giving you dates. I'm just giving you 1783. And it's from Charlton, Massachusetts. Charlton, Massachusetts, I looked that up also. It's a town around 20,000 people now, very affluent. It ranks in the top 5 cities in Massachusetts. It's almost close to 175,000 medium range money. So there's money there. And this man, his father, founded the town. What got me going when I was studying, I looked up his wife, Theda Sheffield, and she was applying for a widow's pension. And that's what I found a lot of information up about it. Next one, please. start jumping the gun here, but I'm going to go on with it. This is his payroll slip. He made $108 in 3 months. That's about $36 a month. And he was a surgeon's mate or a surgeon's assistant. Next, please.
What were his instruments?
Oh, the tools, most tools for doctors during the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812 and the French Indian War was a saw and a sharp knife. This is a fact that, and this goes back to Revolutionary and also the French Indian. In the War of 1812, 15,000 soldiers died. Out of that number, only 2,500 died in combat. So 12,500 died from disease, infection, typhoid, malaria, typhus, influenza. So that's pretty staggering when you see that. Now, Seth Blood's daughter, she wrote a thing. I'm trying to find the book, and I can't find it anywhere, and the library's trying to help me locate it. She wrote a little thing about her father, and it came, that's only page 16. I'd like to see the whole book sometime. And let me go to my page. She's talking about, first of all, when Seth Blood, when he went to, from Massachusetts, he went to school there. I couldn't find where to school, what he went to for being a medical doctor. But a lot of times he was an apprentice, and he would work with it. Even though he didn't book knowledge, it was practical knowledge. Working with a thing, they said most of the doctors back then, that's what they were, they were apprentices.
Did she talk a little bit about what it was like her home when she came to Brunswick?
When they came to Brunswick, first of all, Brunswick was nothing but woods, forest. They said from Cincinnati by the Ohio River, a squirrel can jump up on a tree and never hit the ground again until it got to Cleveland. So that's pretty wooded out there. And that's what they said. In one of the books I was reading about him, he made a comment. He told someone that when he came to Brunswick, he had to take a hatchet and mark trees to find his way to his house. That's the way he could find it, because you couldn't see houses. And finally, he cut down enough trees, and he cut down, you were responsible for the road in front of your house. So the first thing you did, you cut down the trees, and use that wood to make your log house. Your log house consisted of just logs, not hand-hewed, no nails, it's pegs, round logs, chink, which was nothing more than clay. The chimney was made out of sticks and clay, and the lock on the door was wooden. It just went up and down, so there wasn't much. With their horses, what they had, they usually build a lean-to in back of the house, because they were worried about wolves and bears and things attacking their things, so they could have them close to them. So they had it pretty rough. I want to get back to New York. He wound up in New York, met his wife, who was also from Massachusetts, and they married in 1809. And they were there till after the War of 1812, and they met up with E.W. Freeze, Demings, Stevensons, Kingsbury, and they got together and they went to Cleveland. Well, then when I was talking to this historian, she said, "Do you know how they went?" And I says, "Well, they probably went to the old National Road." And she says, "No." She says, "Can't be. The National Road started in 1812 and it ended in 1837. And in 1817, she looked it up and it only went as far as Uniontown, Pennsylvania. That was it." So what they did, most of our settlers that from Massachusetts went north to New York, got into near Buffalo, took a boat down to Cleveland, or they followed the shoreline of Lake Erie to get into Cleveland. So that put a damper on me when I found all that out. And I thought they were going through the woods, tracing through it. But she said there's no way that they could have done that in that amount of time. When he came here, he was a real energetic guy. He was a doctor. He was a doctor for Cuyahoga County, Summit County, Medina County, Lorain County. If they needed him, he was there. He had some, I wouldn't call it a problem, but he liked drinking. He loved liquor. That probably kept him going. But we'll get back to that. One thing when you're talking, you should be organized, which I'm not. It's easy to mess up on your pages. When he came to Brunswick, he was sufficient. He lived in that house, which was 640 feet away from the center. In 1820, he becomes the first postman, the post office. And the post office was in his house. It says over here, the early weekly mail delivery was the high point of the week. The men gathered early and waited while the mail was being sorted, discussing about, arguing about politics. After letters and papers were read, there was an exchange of news and gossip. Hasn't changed too much, has it? But he was a postmaster from 1820 until 1826 when he died. Go to the next one, please. Evan Thomas wrote about the Masons. Seth Blood was a charter member of the Freemasons in Medina. And they were starting a new lodge. It was Lodge 58, which is still going. And he was a charter member along with Abraham Fries, Lamuel Thayer. There was someone else. I'm sorry, I forgot. But altogether, there was 7 out of 15 were from Brunswick, which was quite rare. They had to travel 7 miles to Medina for this, and it was all by horseback. At that time, there was no roads. So when they voted, Abraham Fries became the worshipful master. He was like the president of the charter. And Seth Blood became the junior warden, which was like a vice president, which is a great honor. But they couldn't say that they were a member, they weren't part of the Freemasons until they got their charter. They had to have that charter in their hand. So Seth Blood said that he'll go to Columbus to pick it up. Well, going to Columbus takes a week and a half one way. And what they did, they took Route 42. And that was the only way. And part of it was cleared, not for wagons or anything, but for horseback and that. Other ones were cow paths or Indian trails and that. But it took a week and a half to get there. So that was kind of rough, So he spent, in one of the readings I did, they said he probably took longer because there was a lot of good inns and taverns on the way. they already had his number. But he came back with the charter, and lodge number 58 became into existence. The largest it ever was 264 members, which was a good amount. The Masons had a problem, and they fell out of favor with the public, and a lot of lodges closed, and Medina was one of them for a while. And it wasn't until 1847 that the lodge reopened and they got their charter back. Now, in this death notice, they're talking about Seth's wife and him. And it says, excuse me, can everybody hear okay? He was a physician. He was also a surgeon, a very good surgeon. I went through all of my papers and I tried to figure out what people said about him that knew him. One said he had a superior mind. Another one said he was thoroughly educated. Another one said he was held in high esteem as a physician and a surgeon. Another one said he was rough. Another one said he demanded respect. He was a rugged man, he loved his liquor, and he was rough and tough. These came from all different people that knew him. And so he might have been quite a man. I would have really liked to have known him. And after studying him, I think I do know him a little bit better. When he was a Mason, there used to be, the Masons took part in parades and different organizational social things. And he would dress up in full military garb, and he had 2 pistols that he brandished on his hips. And if someone came up to him and he felt it was disrespectful, he would draw his pistols out and I guess scared the living daylights out of him. And but that was in the Gazette. They were talking about how he was, but he was really a great guy. In 1823, Cuyahoga fever hit Cleveland real bad, and it's because of the Black Swamp. The Black Swamp was an area it was a swamp that was in upper Michigan, Indiana, and came down all the way to Cleveland, and it was 140 miles one way, and it was 50, 60 miles deep. And the farmers wanted that land because it was muck. Everyone knows what muck is, muck farms over by Willard and that. And that was part of the Black Swamp. It was from glaciers where the water sat and rotted the plant life and that there. Well, the farmers were doing it. Well, they started dying. They started getting sick. You know, and so they needed sufficient doctors to come in there and treat them. And in 1810, Cleveland had 57 people in their town. In 1817, we had 27. So we weren't far behind Cleveland at the time. But he came down there to work with them. And it didn't get better, it got worse. So my cousin's husband is a doctor and a teacher at Brown University. So I called him up and I asked him about the Cuyahoga fever, and he looked it up. And he says, what they know about it now, it was malaria, it was typhus, typhoid, influenza, it was a bunch of different kinds of things that hit him. What happened when you have malaria, it weakens your another disease, and it treated, and it kept going back and forth. The cure for it, if you want to call it a cure, it was quinine, which is bark from a tree, and it was very bitter. And what they would do, they would mix it with gin and liquor to make it more palatable for people. So they probably made a bunch of alcoholics out of it, but I guess it took weeks for it to break. But everyone did this, yeah, typhoid was, they called it a shaking fever. Typhus was sweating, you'd sweat. And influenza is a flu. But when you add this with malaria, you're in not in too good a shape. And that's what's been happening to a lot of these people. So, and they didn't know it. They did the best they could. A lot of the farmers moved up to higher ground to get away from the mosquitoes because the mosquitoes were terrible. They said that you could on a early morning you can go out and you couldn't look out without seeing a swarm of mosquitoes in front. That's a lot of mosquitoes. But he treated them as much as he can, and he came home. And then in the spring of 1826, it got real bad in Cleveland again, and he packed up his bags and he went down to Cleveland. Well, he caught malaria, but he also caught typhoid, and he weakened himself so bad, and they were going to treat him down there, and he says, I want to come home. So they loaded him up and brought him back home, and 2 days later he died. So it was quite, he died at the age of 43. His funeral was at Westview Cemetery, and it was underneath the auspices of the Masons. And they said there was well over 150 to 200 Masons at that funeral. So when you go into Westview Cemetery and you look and see at least 200 people standing in front of that grave, not counting his friends and his neighbors. So there probably was well over 300 or something more. It's something to see when you go by yourself and see how lonely it is. I was telling Sam, she knew it already, when they settled Brunswick, they didn't settle the whole town. They only settled the west part. There was no homes on the east side of 42, not until 1830s. And that was really shocking to me, that they didn't even have a house on it. But they all settled on this side. All your founders are on this side, all within a mile and a half of the center. The Demings, the Flemings, the Demings, the Freezes, Stevensons, Harveys, they're all on that side. And none was on the east side. And he was just quite a man. No one ever made fun of him. Like I said, he wanted respect, and he got respect. When he died, when they buried him, I went back there 2 days ago to look at his grave again. And I started walking down the path. And when you go down that, and you're coming around by his grave, there's 5 doctors that are buried in that location. Dr. Ezra Summers, Dr. John Clark, Dr. Elijah Summers, and there was another one. But they were all doctors, and you could take a baseball, you could hit each one of their things. So that was kind of rare to see that they were all together like that. I thought that was neat. That's about it.
Oh, the inscription on his grave.
Oh, just saying, if you look at the grave and if the sun isn't shining on the stone, you can't read it. You can't read it at all. I thought it was lost. But then when the sun shined and we found a thing in the Cleveland Press that actually quoted it. It says, "Farewell, great soul, a short farewell, till we meet again above, in the sweet groves where pleasures dwell, the trees of life bear fruits of love." and that's the same. Go there sometime when the sun is shining. It's very touching to see that, and how many people we saved.
I was going to ask you, so I stopped there on the way here, tried to write that. Do you have any idea, in memory of Dr. Seth Blood died, a great above that quote?
Oh, there's
And that's what they wouldn't get it. It was,
Can you make
how
it
did they
bigger?
describe it? I'm guessing. You see where Seth is. Below Seth.
What are you trying to read?
On the stone.
On the stone, Dr. Seth Blood, right where your finger is, and his died next to
August 8th.
What's the next line? It says a great
He was.
something.
I think that's where he says he's 43 years old.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
You got really young.
Pardon?
Very young.
Yeah, there's 43 here. 43 years. Age 43. But if all pioneers were like this guy here, no wonder they made it. You know.
One of the interesting things I always found is that if you went to the 1820 census of Brunswick, he's the only one that wasn't listed as a farmer.
Yes,
The
you're right.
only one. It wasn't listed as a farmer.
He wasn't-
Everybody else was a farmer.
He only owned 14 acres. Now, this is where it gets a little
Yeah, because
confusing.
we found it on the map, we found the 1830 map. His land, according to that map, was right next to this.
If you listen to what they were saying, they said that he was 640 feet from center, which would put it right at the driveway going into the plaza. But then when you look on the map, it's showing the corner of Pompeii, they called it, Laura Road here, the corner up here, right in the corner on this side here, they said that was his property, this 14 acres. But I can show you another map, and it shows that he had 14 acres, 640 feet center. So either he bought 14 acres and just kept it for his horses or whatever he was doing, but he owned hardly nothing. What surprised me about his wife, Thea, when he died in 1826, she didn't have a job, but she lived here from 1826 to 1850. She never remarried. That's going to be my next chore, try to find out what about her. I know her daughter lived with her.
Did they have any kids?
They had one daughter, Minerva, and she got married to a James Armstrong, and they said he was from Brunswick. And I think I talked to someone, they said there was some Armstrongs that lived in Brunswick, buried at Westview. So I got to check up on that. But I know that James Armstrong was from Belfry, Ohio, and when he married Minerva, Seth's daughter, the mother in 1850 moved down to Belfry, and that's where she's buried. I got a picture of her tombstone there, and the whole family too. Now, she was a year old, see how your math is. She was a year old when she came to Brunswick in 1817. She got married in 1850. How old was she?
34.
How old?
34.
It shows 3 kids that she had with this, that Minerva had. And, but the kids were older than she would be in her late 40s. I don't know if they had kids back then at that age. It probably didn't matter. But I wanna look up in that.
No, she's not buried in Westview Cemetery. Right?
No.
They moved someplace.
Belfry, Ohio.
Where's Bill?
It's near St. Clairsville, Parkersburg, West Virginia.
Oh, wait.
He worked on the railroads. He worked for Wheeling Lake Erie and Nickel Plate Railroad, and that's what he was. That's James Armstrong, and he had 3 kids. He had 1 boy and 2 girls, and well, like I said, I just questioned whether those were her kids or he was married before, and it was their, from the first one. But one thing about history, you're always learning and you're always checking out things. Just like we were talking about that property. There's property shown right here in the corner of Laurel and 22, but it shows land over there 640 feet over there. Who's right? But that keeps you going. That keeps the fun of looking up history. Everyone in graves in Westview Cemetery has a story, and has a history. And we just got to look for it. And I think it's pretty neat to see some of it. That's it. Thank you for listening.
All right. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Any questions at all?
Whatever, yeah. Well, what happened to the, because there was a big marsh area up there around the lake, Michigan, all the way around the Toledo area, because it's still a wet area, because you got Maggie Marsh up there. And all
What they
that.
did, they drained it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they found out, they were, medical technology was getting better, even in 1850. And the first thing they said was the mosquitoes. So they started draining the canal with a series of canals and ditches going to Lake Erie to drain it out of that water. And some of our best farms today are right where the farms are, where the black swamp was.
Well, there's a lot also too, one of the reasons they have the algae blooms up there is because of a lot of the farms up there and the runoff.
If you ever see muck, if you put muck in water, it turns like sludge. And that's part of the problem. But what can you do? That's why they're telling the farmers to try to keep away from the edge of the, where you can't get that water. But the best farmlands are over there. Celery Mule by Willard, Ohio, is part of the muck farms. And you ought to see their lettuce and their celery. It's unbelievable.
Just don't go up there when they're fertilizing.
The thing is, you don't have to fertilize over there.
No, they do. It's good. Very much.
Let's look at Taco Bell.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. Answered a lot of our questions.